Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID, Tony, the Pugilist Boy, and we are the children of the game. Sorry for the delay, everyone. Tony, how was your weekend? Talk to me.
So keeping it short because I'm still loading and there's going to be a bit of feedback. But weekend was great. Enjoyed the boxing. Great to see you at the Wembley Arena this weekend for the Queensbury show. I was thoroughly entertained. You know, some action was, but I thought overall I was very pleased, and I won some free tickets, took some people, and they were also extremely well happy with what they saw in the night's entertainment. And it's always great to run into people that you know in the trade.
Good stuff. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, just for you to know, we're trying to keep the shows to the time frame that we've been given. A lot of time we do run over, and in some instances quite substantially. Now, when we've got guests, that's all well and good, but when it's just the two of us, you know, that sometimes causes a problem, messes up the metrics and stuff of the channel. So we've had to make a conscious effort to basically talk less, which is kind of difficult for both of us at times, and also to reduce the amount of fights and stuff that we do talk about. So in this one, we're only going to address two of the fights that was on the Queensbury card, and there while there was four fights on the matchroom card we could speak about, I think we're going to just skip it to the main three at this point. So with that being said, I want to just say, okay, big up to Anthony Yard for getting back in the ring. We're not going to say anything else about that. Moses Atama, another win, another victory. Time for him to obviously step up or step it up again a little bit more of a level from him. Royston Barney Smith. There was a nice big step up for Ezra Taylor. We will save the conversation on that one. He likely will be on the show within the next 3 to 4 weeks, so we'll save any sort of analysis for when he's on, and we'll speak to him separately about that. Zach Parker got back in the ring against Khalid Gradia, and he got a corner retirement. So yeah, that's him back in the winning bracket as well. So the only two fights on that particular card we will be addressing is Pierce O'Leary and Kane Gardner, and obviously Zhang and Joyce. So that's that one. And then yeah, Matchroom, I think we're just literally we'll talk about McCaskill and Ryan. We'll talk about Conor Benn and Orozco, and we'll talk about Hitchens and Zepeda. And yeah, Jose Zepeda. So with that being said, I think Tony's just loading something up in the background. So we normally like to do big fight to start, and then we'll do big fight at the end. So I guess the first big fight to start off with, we'll be talking about Conor Benn. Even though it wasn't the main event, that was the fight that basically garnered all the headlines from that particular card. So I'll start off, and essentially, regardless of all of the quote unquote, outrage or uproar that he was boxing over the weekend, to me, quite frankly, it was a very, very good performance from Conor for someone that's been out of the ring for nearly 18 months, coming up to 154, which is a weight that he's not competed at previously. Looked in great shape, looked sharp, looked fast. I liked the level changes, especially when he would level change off the jab, slip to the outside, make Orozco sort of fire a shot, and then basically either roll it off the shoulder, roll it off the side of the glove, and then sort of come back. So there's a lot of catch and counters. For me, the first 3 to 4 rounds was like amazing work. Quite frankly, like I said, there was speed, there was snap, there was power, there was sting. Um, Orozco was a very, very tough and durable opponent. Um, I feel like there probably wouldn't have been many people at 147, 154 on the night, that would have, sort of, I guess, dented him any more than Conor did. Possibly you might have an argument for someone like Boots Ennis, but again, we never quite know until they're in the ring. So at this point in time, you just have to assume that it is what it is. And obviously, a lot of people, the narrative will be, oh, well, Conor didn't get the stoppage, so because he didn't get the stoppage, it means that the quote unquote the juice is wearing off. But a lot of people know that when it comes to things such as performance enhancers and the like of that, none of that is about more time gaining you extra strength unless it's like stone cold steroid use. It's more about recovery and being able to recover quicker to do things more to gain better results moving forward. So that wouldn't have affected any power, but he started to tail off a little bit in the second half of the fight from just my feelings. But I feel that was a little bit of, obviously there was a pace he set, thinking that maybe he might get Orozco out of there a little earlier than actually what happened. But then also it's about managing the round. Sometimes you need to take those breaks, and it's just about taking them where you can. And ultimately, I thought, yeah, it was a very controlled, very measured performance. I did have Orozco winning. I think I had him winning 3 rounds technically. I know that there was a case most people said that he won one, but there was, to me, I think he won three, but one of them was definitely a swing. So 98, 92, 97, 93 for me, he did enough. He applied consistent and constant pressure, which is something that Conor Benn needed. He needed to know what it's like to kind of be pressed and not be the aggressor constantly in a fight. Um, the one thing that I wonder is, will they now potentially, even though look, it's a massive fight, and we'll talk about that later. Do you slow the roll on the potential Eubank fight just because it's a case of, all right, well, his power, we don't obviously know what the power is truly saying, but yeah, it might have translated, but it didn't necessarily do what it needed to do at 154. Can we actually get, can we get the power that we need at 160 to take on someone who's not going to obviously be as weight drained at that particular point? So that's a pretty interesting scenario for me. But yeah, as I said, for Conor, those level changes, I thought they were spectacular. The punch selection was great. Defense was great. Tied up when he had to. Tucked up when he needed to. Um, Took the rounds off that he needed to in between. But was pretty controlled throughout the entire fight. But I would definitely have to see Orozco again, maybe on the DAZN Mexico shows, or even just as another opponent for some up and coming 154s, and maybe he can make a go of it himself and get one of those slots. Tony, I know you watched the fight. What did you think of of that?
I thought first and foremost, Orozco deserves the greatest of praise because the kid has got the minerals. He's a tough as hell Mexican fighter. I thought it was pretty pedestrian from Conor Benn. I thought he started off well, but he then seemed to run out of ideas. And with that, I saw a slowing down towards the end of the fight. Look, he's talking the talk like, oh, I'll take Eubanks out in 3 rounds. And he made a complaint about Eubanks taking Liam Smith the distance. Oh, if I had a man with one leg, I would have done this and I would have done that. Well, sorry, my friend, but you had a legitimate 154 pounder and you couldn't do anything. And in the end, you kind of look mundane as well. So I'm not overawed by the methodology. I think, yeah, fine. As a get me back into the ring, get me back into the feed of things. Great. You did what you needed to do to achieve your goal. You now have shaken off your ring rust. But as far as the 10 rounds is concerned and where you go forward from here, I haven't got a goddamn clue because it showed me nothing to say, oh, based on this performance, I can go back down to 147 and I compete with the big boys there. It showed me nothing to say, oh, I can compete at 154 against the elite here. And it showed me absolutely nothing to say, well, I can go up to 160 and fight a guy who's competed there for most of his career. So I'm not jumping on the Conor Benn bandwagon. Yeah, did what he needed to do, looked comfortable, got the win. There's no if, buts, or maybes about the win. But against a durable opponent like what we saw, there was nothing there that makes me go, oh my gosh, did you see this? Or, somebody better watch out in 160. No, nobody's watching out. Incidentally, we didn't say hello to the defeaters in the chat. I know there are lots of them. Do you want to go through that? Do you want me to go through that?
All right, let me do it real quick. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so first things first, let's go all the way back up to the top. So October came in from early. Big up to you if you are actually still here, because I think she did that from about 2 o'clock. Philip Answer, big ups to you. Declan, Jam Down 187, always and forever. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. Fight Fan TV, Daniel J. Boateng, Joe, or Just Joe, big ups to you. Sir Oku, Untraceable, big ups, thank you. Philip Answer, KB. I mean, I've got multiple mics. It just depends on which one I use on the day. But thank you very much for being here. North Bank Bren, always a big member of the channel. Big ups to you. Rain in Terror, Bigsy Biggs, Michael Januario, and that is it, I believe. Oh no, we got Adari Pennant as well. Big ups to you. And yes, that is that. Okay, right. So, well, okay, in terms of your Connor take, that's fair enough. But I mean, ultimately, we need to see more. But for me, 18 months out, he looked just as crisp as he needed to be. And
What do you
if you
think
want to
of this
say
comment by Michael? What do you think of this comment by Michael?
Connor should fight Liam Smith first before Eubank, see if he has the power to hurt him. I mean, if you want. To be honest, I mean, but can Liam Smith make 154 comfortably, or are we doing that at 160? Or here's the thing: if that fight's gonna be at 160, why are you taking like why are you taking the scenic route? You might as well go to the big prize. Um, and at the end of the day, Liam Smith, whatever we say about it, Liam Smith never did anything prior to make us think that he'd knock out Eubank in 4 rounds. And with whatever stuff happened, it happened. So that's not to say that Connor can't now come out after 18 months. He's got 10 solid rounds under his system. If he comes back out again, then who knows what happens next. But that's a story for another time. That we gotta keep the show moving. Next one, I think the next probably best thing to talk about would be the what's this? Uh, don't think he can do anything at higher weights. Also, is not good enough to beat the big boys at 147. Great fight, but not in the elite. How very entertaining in the ring and out Chisora of 147. I mean, to be
No.
fair, no, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, that might be correct, but ultimately, you've got people like Tank Davis who are picking and choosing who they want to fight, right? Conor is undoubtedly a big star. So if he wants to do at this point in time the Javante Davis route or the Anthony Yard route or whatever, and just you just fight whoever you choose to fight, you go up and down and you pick the easiest opponents and the cherry picks, it is what it is. So if others can do it, then let him do it. It's that simple. Um, Now again, we need to move on. So um, let's talk Pierce O'Leary and Kane Gardner. We can spend a little bit of time on this one. Now, obviously, you was there. This is one of the few fights I actually watched while I was at the show because I was dealing and doing other stuff. Um, Now it was a good performance from both. Like it was the closest 50-50 fight that was actually on that entire card. And essentially for the first few rounds, Kane Gardner was very much on the back foot. It's like he was trying to soak up power, was trying to see if he could take Pierce O'Leary to the later rounds. He didn't want to really unload and let certain things out just in case he got caught. Pierce O'Leary was he was very sharp. He was very snappy. He had very good head movement throughout the entire fight. But towards sort of round 4 and 5, um, Kane Gardner started to walk him down a little bit, started to throw that jab out at front and just sort of tried to walk him into corners and was digging to the body quite nicely. Um, in about round 7, I believe it was, Kane Gardner got caught with a shot over the top from Pierce O'Leary, and it looked like at first from my angle, it looked like he slipped on the canvas, but he was on unsteady footing for pretty much like the whole rest of that round. So the shot really hurt him, but he managed to ride that out. Came back quite strong again in the 9th and in the 10th, and he just made it a very competitive fight. It was a very hard fought fight for both guys. The only thing, unfortunately, is it was marred by horrendous scorecards. Um, I think one of them was 100-90, and then the other two was like 99-91. Now, I had it closer to 96-94, possibly 97-93. You could maybe understand, but I actually spoke to Kane Gardner just after the fight, after he'd sort of come out the changing rooms and stuff, and I just said to him, "Yeah, those scorecards were bad," and he said to me, "Well, look, I was never gonna win on this card, even if I won, I was gonna lose, but." Like to not give me any rounds at all is crazy. And I goes to him, look, I know you at least won 3. He's like, easily I won 3 of those rounds. But he said I've got no argument about the loss. I did lose the fight, but you can't tell me that I didn't pick up none of those rounds at all. It was really bad scoring, and it wasn't the only one on the night that was like that. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that obviously, it was very much A side privilege, but yeah, it was a very entertaining fight, and I liked the skills and the adjustments that both guys made in the fight, especially Pierce O'Leary when he started getting tired. He was he knew how to sort of ride the ropes. He knew how to take his breaks, try and stay safe, stay defensive, and he's got very good um, a pendulum movement as the body, as you can see there. The head body like slipping riding shots. Pierce O'Leary is a very good talent, and I'm interested to see where he moves forward. And I want Kane Gardner to also rebound. Because yeah, he was obviously very hard done by. But we yeah, obviously he'll be back hopefully better and stronger. What did you think? Obviously, you took the footage, Tony. What was your thoughts of the fight?
Yeah, I thought that was a very, very entertaining fight. I think the two outstanding fights for me were that particular fight with Pierce O'Leary and Zach Parker, who we're not going to talk about, unfortunately. But I thought he put in a superb performance, and you know, I'm I'm going to go into afterwards, but let me just give you the breakdown of Pierce O'Leary. So this was a very good fighter. This guy is a very good fighter. He's your atypical, come through the Irish amateur system, and he's got that Barry McGuigan, Bob and Weed move all the time. Keep moving, which is very typical of Irish fighters. I train 3 Irish fighters here in the UK, and elusiveness, that's all I can always tell you about Irish fighters. They're very hard to hit because the head is always moving. They slip punches very well. They know how to roll and move their feet so that there are angles that are very difficult for you to hit them from. And he's one of those said fighters. So as much as we like to give Kane Gardner the props for being a tough kid and saying, look, he was defeated before he walked in the ring. Look, the credit has to go to Pierce O'Leary. And yes, it was 190 on one card and 299 92s on the other two. But in all honesty, I found it difficult to give Kane Gardner more than 2 rounds. I think I just about give him 2, and that's me being kind. I just thought Pierce O'Leary was absolutely outstanding in his movement, in his control of the fight. He was controlling the dance. He was the one who said, I'll go fast, you can come with me. I'll go slow, you stay there. You know, his distance control, when he wanted to take a break, he moved around, used the ring. When he wanted to initiate action, he was initiating action. The punch selection is fantastic. He has every punch in the book. You know, I think I've shown you enough footage so you're able to see that this kid is special. He's very good. You know, maybe the one thing that he lacks that, you know, he would need to be up in amongst the elite is the power. But let's not get it twisted. The kid can box, and I was very impressed by him. And I, as like you said, very looking forward to seeing where he goes next.
Okay, right. So, like I said, I saw 3 to 4 rounds for Gardner, but that's fair enough. We can go 2.5. So one of them, if one of them's a swing round, then cool. It's 98, 92, 97, 93. But yeah, right. If we move on, let's go to, I guess, the biggest controversy of the night, which happened to be Jessica McCaskill versus Sandy Ryan for the unified WBA, WBC, IBO, and WBO titles. I think the Ring Magazine title was also on the line, and the lineal status of super, I mean, of welterweight as well for the women. So a lot to play for. Um, I'll let you start on this one, Tony. I know you've got some thoughts on this, so go ahead.
I mean, oh man, if I could tell you how good Pierce O'Leary was in one mouthful, I could tell you how badly Jessica McCaskill is on the other mouthful. I mean, she can't have won any piece of that fight. I mean, I just cannot fathom how anybody, and I've heard actual other boxing commentators say they thought McCaskill won. Her footwork is atrocious. I mean, if you can think of Muhammad Ali mocking George Foreman as the mummy, yeah, that is her. Her footwork is atrocious. She literally walks around and her feet are crossing like a monster. And anyone who watches me boxing or training boxers will tell you how much I hate boxers who don't know how to use their feet in the right way. Her punches are fast. They may even be powerful. But if you can't move your feet, punches become irrelevant. Yeah? They literally become irrelevant. And Sandy Ryan essentially just did what she needed to do to make her look bad. In and out, in and out, in and out. Using good footwork, peppering McCaskill when she needed to, and then slipping away from the wide shots that she was throwing. Now, yes, she does catch her sometimes. But for me, you know, you catch me 10, 11 times in a round, but I pepper you 40, 50 times in a round, you lose the round. And I just cannot fathom how anyone can watch that fight and be A, entertained by McCaskill and her technique, and B, see how she wins that fight. It was awful. It was awful. And I feel sorry for Sandy because she did everything right in that fight. You know, as the fight wore on, she tired a little and maybe the rounds got a little bit closer. But let's not, you know, keep it a buck, as Danny from Fight Fan TV will say. She beat the bejesus out of that child for most of the fight. And had she had a little bit more spite in some of her punches, she might have done even worse damage. But I'm sorry, that was one of the worst robberies I've seen this year.
Okay, Now I was supposed to watch. Okay, I was supposed to watch the fight back. Just so I could be confident and clear in my assessment. I wasn't able to do that. I did have some other things to take care of. However, what I will say is from my initial viewing, not watching the first 4 rounds like super intently, but it looked pretty much like it was about a 3-1 Sandy to a 2-2 Sandy after the first 4 rounds. However, after that point, up until round 9, I had it Sandy Ryan at a canter primarily, and the 10th round was a little bit. I'm not quite sure. Again, I'd have to go back and take a look, but there's no way that I could give McCaskill more than 4 rounds, and that's including any swing rounds that may have potentially been in there as well, from what I initially saw. So while it was competitive in spots, it wasn't particularly a hard fight to look at and understand who landed more shots per round, who landed cleaner shots per round, and who, I guess, did better overall work per round. Like in every single metric you look at, it was Sandy Ryan. Um, I also think she threw the shots that hurt McCaskill the most out of the two, because I don't know if this is sometimes a tactic that McCaskill does. She, like, if she gets hit, like, she properly bends forward way below the waist so that you can't technically strike her again, and then sort of way sways around under there, pops back up, and then throws a looping shot afterwards. Now I don't know, there was a couple times she done that, which, but to me, she did it in a way that exaggerated the hit, making the hit look more explosive and damaging than it probably was. So in those moments, that's definitely me saying that no, well, you should at this point now be, that round is definitely against you, because it's making, you're giving off the impression that those shots are like rocking you to your core. Um, whether that's the case or not, that's what it looks like. Um, if I talk about Sandy's work real quick, look, as you said, her in and out game in the ring, behind the jab, behind the straight right, even when she went to the body, it was quite crisp. There was a couple times she decided to try and go for the body and got caught over the top. So she adjusted and said, all right, let me leave the body work for after you swing a shot. And as soon as you swing, then I can dig into that body and then angle myself off before you're able to get back at me. And for the most part, the majority of that was working. So yeah, ultimately, at at most, you can say Sandy won the fight 8 rounds to 2. At absolute worst, you could say she won it 6 rounds to 4. There's no, yeah, from what I saw, there's no rhyme and reason that you can even to be paid under the table, you can give Jessica more than 4 rounds. Um, so yeah, it's a bad, very very bad decision. Yeah, they'll run it back, but ultimately, it's like that's just a bit of a stalling of both people's careers at this point. Probably more Sandy than Jessica, because if we're going to be honest, obviously Jessica's 39, about to turn 40. I don't think she's got much long left, and I don't know what she really does if she loses these belts. But Sandy could have been on to bigger and better things now. But right now, she's got to finish off dinner that she's already had. But someone's just put more of the same food in front of her and said, "Okay, well, there you got seconds." And she didn't ask for seconds. I don't think she needed it either. So I feel bad for her and Clifton. But we've seen it before. You know, it is what it is. Yeah. Any further comments on that one, Tony?
No, sad,
Okay.
sad.
Right. So, with that being said, I guess we can, um, very briefly, I just want to say, as we had said earlier, so shout out to obviously Anthony Yard and his tune up number 760. Shout out to Moses Atalma. And his, obviously his bring along fight. He wants to be back out again quickly, so hopefully that happens. Shout out to Ezra Taylor on his big step up against Joel McIntyre. But as I said, we'll speak about that one in another show, especially when he comes on the show within sort of the next month. So we'll save our analysis and everything for that when he's actually here. Royston Barney Smith as well. I didn't see his performance. I've still yet to watch it. Zach Parker, Austin Amo Williams. He also had a pretty good performance as well. But it wasn't a great one. It's not one that we'll particularly talk about, but just to say Steve Rolls showed up some flaws, and Austin doesn't necessarily look like he's improving as much as maybe he was before. But Steve Rolls is obviously
So I just want to comment on that particular fight, if I may, very briefly.
Yeah, give me a sec.
Yeah.
So Steve Rolls is doing. He's obviously a really sort of good gatekeeper level guy. Like if he'll put test to those guys. He's good enough to mix it at the world level. Just can't quite do his thing. And then obviously Alois Jr. Shout out to him, who obviously was the live float. Didn't end up getting put onto the show until after the main event. So unfortunately, unless you was looking at Laura Woods in the post broadcast, you would have seen his fight taking place behind her shoulder, but he wasn't shown on the card. But 1 round KO for him. Big up. Tony, yeah, go back to Austin and Steve.
Yeah, big up to Alois Jr. Fantastic performance. Big up to Ezra Taylor. Yeah, I just thought on the Steve Rolls versus Amo Williams situation, it looked like a very wily veteran showing up a young upstart. It was a fight that I thought was entertaining, but what I saw was the years of experience that Steve Rolls has in being able to work out what was needed to upset the rhythm of Amo Williams, because Amo Williams is a rhythm fighter. He's very floaty. He throws lots of combinations. He likes to slip to the right and then throw the body shot and come back up. And Steve Rolls, after a couple of rounds, he took the punishment in the early rounds, and he was like, okay, I see what you're doing, and I'm now going to counteract everything that you do. And he's going to fire in between, and he's going to block every shot. His defense is actually really good. If you actually look at the fight, Amo Williams doesn't hit flush punches after about round 3 or 4. A lot of the shots are getting blocked by Steve Rolls. So yeah, very, very interesting. And it kind of opens up a question about Amo Williams, whether he's actually going to progress enough, or whether he carries enough by way of variety in his boxing to be able to compete against the elite in his weight class. I still like him. I still think he's, someone that we need to keep our eye on. He's gonna be in entertaining fights. He does show great power against, especially, fighters that are not capable of holding shots that well. But against a guy that might have superior hand speed, ring craft, and a very good chin, he can lose the plot. Because I think with Steve Rolls, he was like, you can see physically, he looked like he was like, oh, I don't know what to do now. And I'm just going to, try my best to continue with the work rate, which is superb. He's obviously a fit fighter. He works hard in the gym, and he's able to last the distance very well. But he wasn't able to change the dynamic of the fight. And I think Steve Rolls has got a lot of credit for him, where some people would have thought he might have come in and roll over, pardon the pun with the name, but he certainly didn't do that. And as I said, very entertaining fight.
Cool. Okay, right now, I guess to what was supposed to be the main event of the card at the Caribe Royale in Orlando, Florida, Richardson Hitchens versus Jose Zepeda. Now, in my breakdown, I did say that ultimately he would keep Zepeda behind the jab. He would be very economic with his work. He would use his height and his reach to offset and basically just, dominantly outpoint Zepeda. But I didn't think he'd be able to get him out of there because he never pressed the pace fast enough to sort of take him out, knowing that obviously Zepeda is a very strong puncher. Um, I don't have a huge amount to say about it, as it was a very poised, very controlled, if not uninspired, performance. But it was pretty much a 100 to 120 to 108 or 119 to 109 fight. I think the only round that Zepeda had is possibly the first, and that's literally just when um, Hitchens was just trying to gather his range and just understand what Zepeda's about to do. He said in the press conference, "You've never been in there with people on my level, that your record's padded. I'm going to show you what real boxing's all about." And he delivered on that promise without, maybe the glitz and the glamour. He took Zepeda to school. And, as someone who is, that high up as a sort of like a that sort of fringe world level operator, just sort of being picked apart and taken apart in such ease. Richardson Hitchens is definitely a special talent, and he's probably the Shakur of the 140 division. Is going to be very hard to get fights for him, especially if he doesn't change his style to sort of take a bit more risk. But he will also be extremely hard to beat, just like Shakur Stevenson. So yeah, brilliant performance, if not uninspiring. But ultimately, he is from the school of hit and don't get hit, and he was never in any danger of getting hit in that fight. So um, that's pretty much my thoughts on that one. Go for it, Tony.
Yeah, unfortunately, Base, I didn't get to see the whole fight, so I was so knackered at the end of staying up to watch Conor Benn, and that was like, man, I couldn't. I was with my brother, and I was like, man, I can't keep up anymore. So I'm gonna have to try and catch this fight later. I was unfortunately unable to do so, but I did see highlights, and as you said, look. Richardson Hitchens appeared to look like he dominated that fight from top to bottom based on the rounds footage that I saw. He boxed beautifully behind his jab. He's got, all the moves. Jose Zepeda was made to look kind of one dimensional. And I know he tried to come hard in the last round, but by that time, it's all over. So well done to Richardson's Hitchens, and we look forward to seeing where he goes next. It was an interesting card because you kind of go, well, it's a big card where it was. In fact, it was in a hotel conference room, right?
It's in I guess, a ballroom for the
Yeah.
hotel.
Yeah, I was like, this looked weird. The setting just looked weird. We had like what looked like a tent last week, and now this week in the hotel conference, almost looked like a a dinner show, a boxing dinner show where people are
Well,
sat around
I
tables.
think that's what it was. It was similar to obviously when they do the Monte Carlo nights.
Mm,
It's a site fee. You go there, you have entertainment in within the area, entertainment for the guests at the hotel
mm.
and whatnot, and you get paid a certain amount of money for that. So yeah.
Yeah, it just seemed a bit of a strange setting to have a fight of that or a card, I should say, of that stature, especially when you consider that you had a women's world title unification on the card. I thought it was very disrespectful that fight wasn't the co-main. I found that to be completely, you know, like really, really, I found that was totally disrespectful. There's no way that Conor Benn should have been a co-main on that event.
Well, I mean, you say that, but unfortunately, it's about money and profile. Like, if those women had a higher profile, then they would have been the co-main. That's just what it is. It's the same
Yeah,
reason why, I mean, Katie Taylor will never headline above Anthony Joshua.
I
He
get
has
that.
the profile.
I get that. But she headlines her own cards. So let's not, let's keep
No,
it
but
about.
but that's the point. The fact that she headlines her own cards and she would never get a headline slot above Anthony Joshua tells you that until their profiles are the same, that's just what it is. Conor Benn is more well known than both of those women put together. He
Really,
sells
right
more
now,
tickets than both of those. Even
really, right now,
he's
he sold.
even more well known right now.
Let's be honest. He sold no tickets for that fight.
He didn't have
He
to.
sold 0 tickets for that fight. He
He
was a
didn't need
last
to. But
minute
guess what he
coming.
did? Guess what he did? Tony, guess what he
What did,
did? He
what did he
brought
do?
eyes to that event. Do you know how much more eyes was on that event because he was on the card before than what was beforehand? No one in any of the media, especially over here, was talking about that card up until Conor Benn got added to it 4 days before. So you tell me that he wasn't the star of the show.
What were the numbers
As
like?
much as I
Because
would,
I don't.
don't get me wrong.
I,
I think those women, yes, they should that fight as a unified world title fight should be co-main, but it wasn't. And guess what? Remember when Katie Taylor fought what's her name? When she
Delphine Pursuit.
fought Delphine Pursuit in the first AJ Ruiz fight,
I was there. I
an
was there.
undisputed fight. Where was she on the card? Was she the
Yeah,
co-main?
I get it. I get it.
Right. So that's just what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Until they've got a bigger profile, the only one that would have got that co-main slot above Conor Benn would have been Katie Taylor or possibly Amanda Serrano. That's about it. And that's what it comes
I
down
mean,
to.
it is what it is. I understand what you're saying, Base. I just feel, look, sometimes things just don't look right. I understand the whole let's put people where they can, make hay and you make sure you've got a full audience because, look, we all know Johnny Fisher, the massive ticket seller. And his bouts generally tend to be very close to the main event so that his people stay. On the last fight he fought at Wembley, he was much earlier in the card. Um, I get it, business sense wise, but a guy comes on a card the week before a fight and controversial, if anything. I'm not sure he's turning that many eyes to that fight. Personally, I don't. He's fighting in America. Does anybody in America even know who Conor Benn is?
Well, yeah,
Has he
some do.
fought there before?
No, he hasn't. But
Thank you.
a lot of the content creators over there was talking about I'm wanted to see Conor Benn. I'm happy to see him back. And guess what? They all love him now because they found that he speaks Spanish, which they didn't know before. So all of this stuff,
Yeah.
he just raised his profile over there tenfold in one afternoon, and he
Mm,
made people from the UK stay up who weren't going to stay up for that card. It is unfortunately, Tony, it is what it is.
yeah. I can't tell. I can't tell.
Right now that we've kind of gone through, I guess all of the hors d'oeuvres, the starters, I guess it's time to go for the main course, which is yes, we are going to have to speak about Zhang versus Joyce, the rematch. Um, I'm gonna let you start with this one, Tony. Yeah, I'm gonna sort of give my takes afterwards because I think I can wrap mine up a bit more succinctly. But here's the footage. Go for it.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you're going to be more succinct than me, but you know, I had prior to this fight thought that Joyce would go back in the gym and work with Ismail Salas and come out with a new strategy and a new impetus and something different that would make Zhang be uncomfortable for every minute of every round in that fight. I expected a 12-round fight. I expected Joe to win it by decision. Then I saw that, or I heard from you early in the week that Joe looked big. And then I saw him on Friday on the scale, coming in 30 pounds heavier. And I was like, what the hell? And from then, I was totally confused because I was asking everybody and I was telling people, whoever I could tell, that I had told them, yeah, expect Joe to come back in this fight and expect a different Joe and expect him to do something different. And I think he will correct his errors and he'll win. And I had to turn around on Friday and tell everyone who I could possibly tell, and I know a lot of people didn't hear me say it, but I didn't feel that confidence at all from the weigh-in. Because to me, it just seemed like the worst strategy in the world to go and put 30 pounds of weight on. You ain't the fastest fighter in the first place. And now you're going to go and slow yourself down with an extra 30 pounds? So what was the strategy? Because you ain't a banger. So I couldn't work out that, oh, I'm going to put on some extra size and therefore I'm going to be able to hit harder. Size isn't going to affect your eye, which was damaged in the first fight. So if you can't protect the eye in the first fight, you need to be able to do so in the second fight. You putting on 30 pounds isn't going to make a goddamn bit of difference. And then I'm like, you're going to carry around all that weight into the late rounds and expect to be able to actually do anything of note? So I was totally lost for confidence in Joe Joyce from Friday. And then he comes in the ring and I'm like, okay, maybe he might do something, And I see the fencing match that takes place in the first round where it's, my left jab against your right jab. Let's see who can, gain ascendancy. But nothing happened in the first round of any note. Second round come, boom. Zhang starts to throw his straight left, straight through the guard into Joe's cross-arm defense, and he comes back with a right hook. And all of a sudden, Joe is taking right hooks like crazy. And it's like, what? You didn't work on anything to be able to defend those combinations that Zhang would throw? As you can see, the straight right and then the right hook. He's using that Philly shell, if you want to call it that, a slight cross-arm defense. But, Joe threw nothing of any worth. Look, he's pouring. He's not moving his feet in to be able to hurt Zhang at any point. And Zhang's just biding his time and saying, all right, you don't want to do anything, then I'm going to come in. I'm going to throw that straight right that you couldn't defend properly in the first fight. And further still, I'm now going to throw a right hook on the end of it. And Joe was hopeless. I like Joe. I think he's a lovely person. I support him because he's the Brit. He's a local boy to where I used to live in Banstead. And, look, I just feel bad for him. But I have to put all the blame at his trainers. I don't know what the hell his trainers were doing. And I know Maestro, my good friend Maestro, used to talk up Ismail Salas like he is God in the trainers. But what the hell was Ismail Salas doing with Joe Joyce in the months between the last fight and this one? Because he showed absolutely zilch. No offense, no defense, absolutely nothing. No footwork. It was just a joke. And there's the left clocking him again as usual. Nothing can, he's just throwing left. And then the right hook comes in and you're like, what the hell? So I tried to be succinct. I probably fell miserably, but I hand it over to you. My frustration is in my voice.
No, keep going. You got about 10, 15 seconds left.
Yeah, I mean, the knockout is... Let's talk about the Joe Joyce in incredible granite chin that nobody has so far been able to even wobble. Let's remember that the last fight, he got stunned left, right, and center, but he didn't go down. Well, guess what? that chin of granite after taking all the shots that he was taking, fight after fight after fight after fight, finally wore down. And Zhang took advantage in the most destructive way. That knockout was sensational. And if you see the picture of Joyce like this on the floor, and you're like, what? Man fell asleep. He was literally in like sleeping pose on the floor. I was like, I was in shock.
Just before I obviously give my slight take, I just want people to see this one from this angle. Listen to all the sounds that you hear as well.
Yeah, he's coming now.
All right, I want the people, just in case you didn't hear it, I want you to listen again. And then I'll cut it a bit shorter, but I want you to listen again real quick.
Yeah, he's coming now.
Okay, so for anyone who potentially didn't hear that, you can literally hear one of, I think it was Zhang's team in the background, hear him saying, "It's coming now." They timed the shot literally. If you look earlier on in the fight, you will actually it's about 20 seconds before that happens. You actually see Zhang like practicing that move. You see him throw the backhand, the left out, and you see him, turn with the right hand in the ring. Like he doesn't obviously do it full rotation, but it's like he's almost like he's practicing it, just seeing how he's gonna maneuver into that position. And Joyce just didn't read it. Now, okay, let's talk about the weight real quick. For Joyce to listen to people that number one are not in his camp, don't manage him, and ultimately do not care about his health, telling him, "Oh, all you've got to do is come in, yeah, just come in heavier, and you'll be fine. You'll get him out of there." Like he's an idiot for doing it, and they're all clowns for being able to have a. In fact, you know what? They're not clowns. They're actually brilliant. They're brilliant politicians to have jobs, because somehow they get to go on shows like Talk Sport and and all these other different avenues, and they have jobs. They actually get analyst positions, and that's the best advice you can get. Like, come out, oh yeah, just put on a bit of size, Joe, and and you can walk him down, just protect the eye a little bit and you'll be good. He'll gas out, don't worry about it. Like, what person in their right mind has a game plan of waiting for the other person to gas out as your only line of or method of victory? If that's the only way you can see the fight or the tide of a fight changing, then you don't need to be in there with that guy. And I squarely blame, I blame the likes of no, do you know what, Tony? To be real, I don't even want that on there, because I want people to see my face when I say this. Like, I squarely blame the likes of people like Sam Jones, who obviously used to be a part of his team. So Sam should have known better. And okay, you may not be the best boxing brain in the world, but you should know better than anyone that sometimes someone just ain't right for you, and that's just what it is. His new manager, the ginger brother, I can't remember his name, but he's another idiot. I know I said his name yesterday, but I keep forgetting it because he's inconsequential. All I know is he's been his manager for 2 fights now, and man's got knocked out in both of them. Like, it's just dead. Now, some things that Joyce did fairly well in this fight. So, okay, Shane Watson. That's it. Thank you very much, Philip Answer. Again, I didn't care to remember it, but that's that guy. Um, yeah, that ginger nut, idiot. Um, Now, with regards to Joyce, okay, so he moved to his left. He moved away from the backhand. Cool. But here's the problem. If you put on 30 pounds worth of weight or 25, 26 pounds, whatever, ultimately, you're doing that. They say you're doing that for one reason, to put more weight behind your punches or to be able to absorb punches better. Well, if that's the case, all right, you're moving to your left. Fine. Moving away from the backhand. Brilliant, brilliant strategy. But why are you trying to stay on the outside or mid range and fence with this guy? So what your plan is? Oh, like you're gonna make you want him to move, you want him to do his work, and then you'd maybe take him into the later rounds. But guess what? You're moving as well. You're doing a lot of movement with 25, 30 pounds of weight on you that you've never had before as a functioning athlete. So you don't know that you can take that. Yeah, okay, you might trust in your gas tank, but you've never been that heavy before. People call for the amount of time that people call you slow, wouldn't you then think, well, I don't want to be called slower, so I need to have less weight on me so that I can move a bit quicker. Now, the only way the tactic makes sense for him to have had an extra 30 pounds on him is if he literally bum rushed Zhang, jumped on the inside, and just made it a close inside fight. Like you don't give Zhang any chance to extend his arms. You don't give him a chance to. You just literally you clinch. You clinch one side. You bang to the body on the other side. You try and push him back. You stay on his chest. You don't move from that position because the mid range he's faster than you, and on the outside he's got a very similar reach to you, and he can see everything you're doing. So you can't get to the target quick enough for him to not see the punch coming because if it's your jab, well, he's negated your jab because his front hand is basically keeping your jab at bay. Your backhand isn't fast enough to reach him from the outside because he can see it. Therefore, the only way you have a chance to win that fight is to jump and stay on the inside and use whatever power and strength you've got in your body, which I'm sure he is an extremely strong and powerful guy, and you dig to the ball. You just work on the inside for the first 5 or 6 rounds. You wait for the referee to basically pull the two of you apart, and that's constantly what you do. And if Zhang does have a quote unquote bad gas tank, then that's how you get him. That's how you get him to the later half where now he has to start thinking about what he's doing and he starts tiring and starts slowing down. To be on the outside for the entire fight was purely like it was asinine. Now I don't know if that's an Ismail Salas issue. I don't know if Salas is to blame, but he might have to take the blame because there was no real adjustments apart from obviously moving to the left, which he did. But even when he was throwing his jab in the first, when he was trying to jab down to the body, he was still naturally that he does dipping his head to the right, dipping his head to the right. That's his natural reaction, obviously, which would put him right in the line of the backhand. But Zhang didn't even bother go for it. Okay, well, that's a bit too easy. Let's make it competitive at least. He probably could have done that damage from the first round if he really wanted to. He's just too skilled for him. Better defense, catch and shoot. He hasn't got the fastest feet at all. But guess what? He knows how to get to the target. Same as Joyce. Joyce has always been able to find his way to the target, and Zhang is exactly the same way. He seems to get himself to where he needs to be. He rushes. He basically makes you rush your work, and then while you're rushing your work, he times you, and basically makes you. He doubles the force of his shots by making sure that you are walking onto them, as opposed to him having to reach for you. And ultimately, that's what he done. And he feinted that backhand, because he knew that Joyce would. That was the move that Joyce would do because Joyce did a similar reaction earlier. And then, as you see, he's feinted it, but he's already got the torque in the body ready for that rotation for that right hook. And that right hook probably would have. Yeah, I don't think anyone else would have even been able to get to their knee before the count of 10. Um, well, maybe okay, maybe there's a couple, but the majority of people would have been out cold on like Robert Helenius settings that you're just out for a period of time because that hook was vicious. It had 287 pounds of brute strength behind it. And he definitely showed everyone the real Chinese power and the Chinese speed. It wasn't a gimmick. Like he proved it in that fight. Um, so yeah, that's my opinion on it. I don't know what Joe Joyce does next. He, yeah, he's still a lot of people he can beat, but ultimately, like some people just have your number, and that's a fight that their team never should have taken. And they definitely never should have taken the rematch because ultimately you could have still found yourself in a position for a world title voluntary shot, having you could have beat someone else to get yourself there. They're all the belt is relatively on your side of the street anyway, if you want to call it that. It was just it was a bad mistake, and now he's all the way down the bottom of the pecking order. So I don't know what happens with him moving forward. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. It was um yeah, like big ups to Zhang, big ups and obviously big ups to Sean George. Like he's become one of my new favorite trainers. Me and him had a good conversation after the fight in the changing rooms. Uh yeah, that's a that's a really smart veteran guy right there, good amateur and a good pro himself. So he definitely knows his stuff. Uh, and I look forward to speaking with him a lot more in the future. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Tony, have you got anything else you want to say before we start to wrap up?
Now, as I said, I did want to give props to Zach Parker because after the fight, he and I had a very quick chat. Obviously, he was quite emotional on the night because he's gone through some stuff. He was sort of semi-retired at some point, and he's obviously decided he wants to make another go of it. He looked very good in his fight, which was a very tough fight against a very durable opponent. Boxed really well. At the end, he called out Anthony Yard for the next fight, which I think would be an interesting fight. I like Zach Parker. I don't think he's elite level, but I think if we want to see the best of Yard, Zach Parker might be the type of guy that could give him a decent test. And it's an easy fight to make,
Tony, Zach Parker's a career super middleweight. Why is Anthony Yard taking on career super middleweights? What sense does that make?
Yeah.
Because
I
think
mean, I
about it.
get it.
Okay, say for instance, even if it is like a fairly decent fight ish, we already don't give Yard credit for the level of opponents he's been fighting. What credit are we going to give him fighting a guy that's coming up from super middleweight who's done nothing of note at super middle? It's not like he's a world title challenger, that maybe just came up a bit short. We know him best for quitting against John Ryder. Yes, it was a very bad break in his hand, but he quit against John Ryder on his home turf. And that's not the first time that he's had an adversity where and he almost chucked it in a previous fight. So no one's going to give Anthony Yarde any credit for that. So there's unless that's literally one of those all right, I'm taking this one, and then 2 months later there's already this big fight signed. It's there, it's on the posters. I just need this run out. That's not the fight to go for.
But we know Anthony Yard. He'll take that.
But we don't. That's the point, though. We want to.
We don't never get what we want with Anthony Yard. So ultimately, I'm looking at options and going, you know what? I'll take that. I'll take Zach Parker. Both given enough time to prepare for the fight in the right way. Not this, let's find the last minute opponent at the week before. No, I'm going to tell you 3 months in advance, I'll fight you. We both get ready, and then from there we see how it goes.
I'm sorry, you got punched up by Darrell Williams. I don't want to. Yeah, that's just not gonna work. We got a couple super chats before we bounce. So Alexander Wilson, thank you very much for the $5. He said Joyce's feet were in a bad position in that clip. Also, that was Ismail Salas who said he's coming now because I can recognize the Cuban accent. Okay, so therefore, all right, so that makes it even worse because from the side where it actually took place, that was actually closer to Zhang's team's side of the ring than it was to Salas. So if he's literally basically given Joyce to play, okay, he's coming now almost to okay counter and then catch him on the rebound. Well, you should know that your guy's not quick enough to do that. Ultimately, so thank you very much for that, Alexander. If that is the case, that's probably more of an indictment on Salas, and that might end up being the end of that relationship moving forward. Big up Fight Fan TV. Thank you for the £2. He says pure ginseng and ginkgo biloba in that right hook, and yeah, I can't disagree. Let's see. Right, a couple quick comments before we bounce. All right, Daniel J. Boateng says base who wins out of JB and AY. I don't. I earlier on in the I would have said Boatsi. Now I'm not 100% sure, but no predictions get given to me until fights are announced because
Can
you
I
know
can I give
that's
you
what I have
my prediction on that one?
One sec, let me just finish. That's why I have content on my channel, so I don't give those away for free without my own revenue. But go ahead, Tony. Who do you think?
Yeah, Daniel, I'll happily give you my prediction on that one. Josh Boatsi does Anthony Yard. I'm all in on Josh Boatsi. I believe he'll beat Dan Aziz. I like Dan Aziz. You know, I've got nothing but the utmost respect for the guy who's gone out and plied his trade the old-fashioned way. Gone out, worked hard, gone about different gyms, found hard sparring, worked his way from Southern area through English, through British, through European, through Commonwealth. Now he's got a bag of straps and deserves the plaudits that he's getting. But I'm not going to go away from the fact that I know Josh Boatsi is something different. And I feel that he's got too much for both Anthony Yard and Dan Aziz. You know, that's my take.
Okay. Philip answers. Zach Parker lost to Darrell Williams. Yeah, a lot of people feel that way. Jam Down 187 says, see it, avoid it, believe it. I mean, yep, I can't really disagree with that one, unfortunately. Right. Okay. Well, look, that's pretty much it for this one. We tried to we kept it quite shorter than maybe 8 minutes over, but that's okay. We can deal with that. Tony, tell the people where they can find you.
Yep, you can find me on YouTube and Twitter at Pugilistboy. You can find me on Instagram at PugilisticBoy.
And as for me, ladies and gentlemen, BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual, that's my YouTube channel. Subscribers are subscribing at the moment, so if you're not a subscriber, please go over there and become one. On Instagram, it's BaseDaKID, as seen on the screen, written exactly the same way, although don't go on there for much boxing content. If you want the boxing takes, go to X, and you can find me there at B_A_S_E, or just type in BaseDaKID, and my name does show up. So I'm clearly doing something right in those metrics. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. We will be back next week with a bumper show. So we don't know how long that one will last, but we'll do our best to not bore you. But yeah, with that being said, peace out, and we'll catch you then.